All right. Welcome to Artists Rising. Today, I have a very special guest on the show. Her name is Nicole Joy Mitchell. She is a contralto. As a proud native of Brooklyn, New York, she performs regularly in the New York area with American Opera Projects, which promotes the works of new composers. Nicole has performed around the country and abroad at Carnegie Hall's Zenkel Hall, Beth Morrison Project, Center for Contemporary Opera, Portland Opera in Oregon, New York City Opera, Sarasota Opera, the Semper Opera in Dresden, Teatro di San Carlo, Landestheater in Austria, and the Festival de Wiltz. Recently, Nicole made her Metropolitan Opera debut as part of the new highly acclaimed James Robinson production of Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. I first had the pleasure of meeting Nicole when we studied together at the Manhattan School of Music, and it is my extreme joy and pleasure to introduce you now to Miss Nicole Joy Mitchell.
Oh,
Thank you so much for being here today, Nicole.
I'm honored. This is such a pleasure. This is so wonderful. I'm so grateful to do this. I really am. I'm so grateful to see you. Many hours away on another continent in another country. So it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too. Um, I want to ask you first. I don't know if you've listened to any of Brene Brown's podcasts, but she always starts her podcasts with a very earnest, "How are you doing right now?" Like in this moment in time, how are you? And I would like to ask you too. How are you
So,
doing?
well, I will use a word that's not really a word, but I heard it in a movie and I loved it. It was a little girl. It was in the movie Remember the Titans, and the little girl made up a word, and she's like, "I'm so exhausticated." So I will say, I'm exhausticated, um, exhausted, hopeful, um, weary, pensive, and just honestly just trying to breathe, like deep breaths, like take one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I'm doing. And I would be lying if I didn't say I'm also angry.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of and frustration because honestly, I would rather not be. And it's I would rather not be dealing with any of this because I feel like this is the racism part of it is a man-made disease that's just should have been cured long time ago, and we
Mm-hmm.
still have to deal with it. So it's annoying,
Yeah.
but we have to deal with it.
Yes. I just realized that um, the people on Instagram Live can't actually hear because it's going through the sound system on my
Oh,
computer.
okay,
So I'm so sorry,
no
everyone. I
time.
made a mistake with the technical. It is recording on my computer both voices, but don't I don't know how to do all of it at once. I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to wait until the actual podcast episode comes out and enjoy it then. I'm so sorry. Thanks for showing up here, and I'll let you know. I'm gonna try and get it out in the next couple of days. Sorry, Nicole.
That's all
Uh,
right. Oh, it's technology. Easy breeze.
Yeah, I saw some like in my peripherally, like some things coming up that were saying, uh, I didn't know what they're saying, but basically then I read and it said that no one can hear. So, um,
Oh,
but but we can hear each other, and I hate to break the mood of that what you just said, but we can just keep going and um, yeah, I mean, how have the last few weeks in particular affected you?
I well, I have to say, well, thank you for asking. And well, one of the things I'll say is this. First, I will start pre-COVID. You know, life was life. Of course, like a lot of artists, jobs were lost and or postponed, um, and so that was one part of it. And prior to that, as I mentioned to you before we were online live, is that my mom passed away last year, and so I'm still in the busyness of taking care of estate matters, and so that's the emotional part. And yeah, it's been a time where you, there were things pre-COVID that came into the COVID, and then with the uprisings, as I will call them, that have it's just been a lot. It's been an emotional, funky roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
It's like jagged and confusing and maddening, upsetting, and it's like we don't need one more thing, but it's
Yeah.
the racism. Honestly, it's always been there, and I even won't even call it the just the racism, because that's, I think people are so comfortable with that word. It's the erasing of people and the
Mm-hmm.
dismissal of marginalized people. So
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I come up with my own word, but it's the constant erasing and dismissal of people, and particularly Black people.
Yeah.
And I know, of course, it affects other people, but I there's a reason I will focus on Black, and not just because of the obvious. It's because I often find sometimes non-Black people distance themselves from Black people
Mm-hmm.
and have comments of Black about Black people,
Mm-hmm.
and you have insular worlds of marginalized people talking about other marginalized people. And the funny thing is, uh, even more insular is that, of course, there are different Black people. Like there are Black Germans, there are Black Americans, there are Black Latinas and Latinos and whatever, and those who are from, of course, the different countries in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a distance, like some of them are judged. There's a judgment passed between,
Mm.
other within the marginalized people. It's very strange. It's very strange.
Yeah.
But it's been it's a hard time.
Yeah. What was the word you used? Exhaustivo? Exhausted?
Exhausted. Yeah, made up word from
Exhausticated?
yeah, that little girl had made up a word from the movie Remember the Titans with
Yeah.
Denzel. It was a football movie. I love that movie. And the actress Peyton, she was a little girl. I can't remember her last name, but she grew up to be on some like ABC country soap opera, country music opera, which it was actually pretty good. But anyway, she was so cute, but she said exhausticated, and I was like, you know what? That's a perfect word,
Yeah.
exhausticated.
Yeah. I think that everyone through COVID, of course, has been exhausted. And then of course, there was another level with the protests and everything that's been happening the last few weeks. But I feel like the majority of people, or should I say maybe white people or privileged people, are only beginning to tap into that exhaustion that maybe marginalized people and Black people have felt for generations. And
Yeah.
I think I cannot even imagine. It's like yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's a strange world, it's I hate dealing with it, but it's something that has become, I hate to say, commonplace. I mean, it's never been common for me to receive the what they call microaggressions. And, because a lot of times when people deal with racism, I'll just use that word because people understand that for what it is. Racism for a lot of people, especially when it comes to Black people, burning crosses, Ku Klux, Ku, Ku Klux Klan wear, and people screaming at you. But it is really systemic. It is bled through and unseen and hidden and protected. It's like the open secret, you know, during the Me Too movement, which is still going on. You know, there are a lot of open secrets. So people know, they just don't want to know, or they act like they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that people are sick and tired of. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when I go to bed at night, when I wake up, and I'm not a holy roller, but I do believe in God, and I do
Mm-hmm.
believe my purpose is greater than my being my mother's and father's daughter. It's greater than being a woman. It's greater than being Black. It's it's beyond all of the labels.
Mm-hmm.
But with racism, it keeps you grouped in and locked in into a world, well, I will say, gives white people more the benefit of the doubt, but gives Black people more doubt than it does benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows up economically, it shows up educationally, it shows up artistically, it shows up in architecture, it shows up in city planning. You know, there are some areas where you can have a lot of fast food restaurants and fried foods and this and the other. And there are other places where there's a zoning, so you can't have that. Or, you know, the people, of course, tend to take on. They like, listen, we want juice bars, which Black people like juice bars too. I love a juice bar, but uh, you know, it's and it's also economic. You know, it's just it's the invisible monster that also has a face
Mm-hmm.
and faces, and it's constantly changing.
Yeah. And if I hear what you're saying correctly, I think it's true that a lot of people think that racism is like a really extreme kind of Ku Klux Klan, kind of um, pro- a big display, or
Right.
really outwardly. And I think that's more and more, especially in the last few weeks, becoming really obvious and clear that it's actually tiny micro decisions over and over and over and over and over into this compound effect that add up to white supremacy. And
Yeah, it's the protection. You know, I don't feel protected. And I was watching Amanda Seales. She's brilliant. She's a comedian, but she's also a very sharp, beautiful mind. And it was some video clip that was shared. I don't know when it was, but there were a bunch of seemed to be celebrities at this table. And one of the things that she was saying to this one particular person, who I think was, I don't want to call them, I guess he was formerly Bruce Jenner, and he, you know, switched over, which fine. And she was saying to him, who, because he's very Republican,
mm-hmm,
which is very interesting, you know, given, you know, where he is, what he has decided for, now she has decided to be. And one of the things that Amanda Seales said was, this country is there for you, but it's not like it's there for me. It's not there for me like it is for you.
mm,
You know, and it isn't. It's not. My experience is everything. I'm not the mirror. The mirror is always whiteness, and there's room made for us only if you are truly exceptional. And
mm,
given that, in fact, in the world, most people are average. Most people on some level are average. You know, I mean, they may have talents, whatever, but when you are giving opportunities to develop your skills and to hone it, but people are only, I'm not saying this in the best way, but it just seems that white people are invited to the table. If you are Black, and if they have to make room for you, they give you a chair, and it may be not fully at the table, it may be at the corner,
mm,
and some people are pressing their nose up against the glass and they're not able to come in,
mm-hmm,
but they look and they know that they have something, they know they want to develop it, but they're not given those opportunities.
mm,
And it's like whiteness has been the standard.
mm-hmm,
And I have a friend of mine, a dear friend, we talk about all the time. Whiteness is not the standard. Because for myself, and I'll clarify what I mean, because people may be like, what? Well, I'll clarify. Whiteness And whatever, blackness is not the standard. I'm not going to vote for you because you're black. Because you have ovaries is not a standard. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
voting because you have ovaries,
Mm-hmm.
or because you have transition. I'm not voting for you for that. Your
Mm-hmm.
character has to mean something. But it has been time and time again, whiteness has been the standard. And to me, you don't get credit for that. That's your mommy and your daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even if you know your history, because there are still people of color, and I'll be specific, black people who are still passing. They look white, they look just as white as you, and they're living a life, and they know their history. And at a time, there was a certain time where if other people knew your history, they destroyed you. They
Mm-hmm.
would destroy you and call you all sorts of names, because they say, "Oh, I know who your mommy is. I know who your daddy is, and I know who your great grandpa is, and all that stuff. And you're nothing but a, you know." And it's and people had to give up their lives to live white, because white treatment tended to be better than treating people of color, which is why recently I asked the question. I didn't create the question, but it's like a hashtag, treat me like a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of my beautiful white, and I focus on that because I know that there's great support from my non-black friends and people, which I love. I love seeing that. But when they were writing things like hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag stop killing black people. Now, I'm not against any of that. Of course, Black Lives Matter. Of course, I'd love me to stop killing black people unnecessarily. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I wish no one was being killed. Of course, that's not realistic, but disproportionately than white people.
Mm-hmm.
But I started writing hashtag treat me like a black person, because that takes you more insular. It brings you in,
Mm-hmm.
because the question is, if you ask yourself, and nobody has to report to me, because I said, you don't have to tell me anything. I'm not your priest. I'm not anything that you need to report to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you ask yourself, treat me like a black person, where do you feel that? What do you feel? Is it a blessing or is it a curse? And only you can decide. Will you be willing to say, I want my children to be treated like black people?
Mm-hmm.
I want my health care to be the same way the health care that black people get.
Mm-hmm.
I want the education to be the education system to treat my white child like it does the black children,
Mm-hmm.
who are proportionately have the cops called on them when they're kids
Mm-hmm.
and are suspended, and have the cops come in. And there's some schools they don't have nurses, but they have a cop.
Mm-hmm.
They got cops.
Yeah.
And and that's a whole nother conversation about school violence, and that's something else. But it's the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had somebody write to me privately, and they're white, at least that's the box that they check. And they said, I don't want to be treated like a black person. And I appreciated them taking the time to say that, because it was their truth. And they said they felt really badly about it, but it gave them a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are people who are dismissive, who say, I don't know why they're complaining. You just work hard. You do this, you do that. But when the line is constantly moved for
Mm-hmm.
you, it's not that black people didn't try and are not trying. There's a system in place that is constantly moving at the
Mm-hmm.
banks, in the medical field. There's always a line. It's like with women, men and women. There's always a line
Mm-hmm.
that's moving. Every time you get close to it, all of a sudden it seems farther. It's like a mirage.
Mm-hmm.
You thought it was closer, but then it's a lot farther away. But yeah, I started writing "Treat Me Like a Black Person," and I'm also asking people, saying, I would like for the police to treat me like a black person.
Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like? Where does that land? And it's painful, because if I were a betting person, I would guess people are like, no, I'm going to pass on that. My question is, okay, you want to pass on it. Okay, so are you willing to change it?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to change it?
Yeah.
Because you're not actively doing something to change it, that means that you like it just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you know, we've been tired. This is not, you know, all this that's just happening. This is not news. Like this morning, breaking news on New York Times was that Aunt Jemima was pancakes and the syrup, whatever. They're gonna be changing the name,
I saw
and
that you
and
posted
it's
that. That's insane. Yeah.
and it was always a very troubling thing to see. But you know, I'm what I love. I'll go to the positive because it's a lot of things to spill out, and we'll just keep going. What I love is seeing that people are not being silent and dismissive. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there are silent and dismissive people, but I love that I'm seeing that. Like there were a couple of days ago, I had to go out because I don't go out often. I know they have these openings. I'm not really, I'm not for it really. I mean, I had my little mask on, and I turned this corner. I turned onto Flatbush Avenue. I don't know if you remember Flatbush Avenue, but I
Oh
turned onto
yeah.
Flatbush. Yes, I turned on the Flatbush Avenue, and I was minding my business. I was like, okay, I just came, like some shopping. Like I came, and all of a sudden there were floods of people, and white people, black people, Latino people. They're just, I mean, a mixture of people of varying ages and people who had their kids on their shoulders, and they were like, Black Lives Matter. And this one guy had this sign that I loved. It made me chuckle because it was sweet, but it was also painful. But it's like future black jogger here because of Ahmaud Arbery, who was jogging, and all of a sudden he had these two men on him, chasing him down and shooting him. Which I did not watch that video. I saw it up to a point,
Yeah.
and then I don't need to see that. I'll keep that for Law and Order. But
Yeah.
you know, it's hard. But anyway, people are speaking out, and I love it. But I hope that folks know this is not a fashion statement. It's not a fad.
Right.
You know, this is, you know, like, you know, getting different colors in your hair.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, this is human dignity. This is
Yeah.
protecting the dignity of others on purpose.
Yeah. I hope people know it too. And I hope that the only thing we can do is continue to make noise about it. And I heard Austin Channing, who wrote I'm Still Here, she described, well, actually, I want to ask you what your definition of anti-racism is, but she was talking about anti-racism, and she asked the question, she was basically saying, you know, you need to take a good look and ask yourself, do you have the capacity, have you built the capacity within yourself to actually care for others more than you care for your own ego? Like, are
Mm,
you willing to choose to protect someone else over protecting your own ego? And I think
mm,
that is collectively, when I heard her say that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is good. And that is exactly what we need to be collectively asking ourselves and making an effort to learn how to do.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that, you know, because at some point, oops, sorry, pardon me one second. I had my phone like plugged up because I'm like, I don't want the battery to die, and I mean
Oh
it'll be
yeah.
fine, but I just did it as an extra precaution, and the cord fell. Anyway, yeah, I would agree with that. You know, ego, that whole ego thing, but it, you know, for me, and that whole hashtag treat me like a black person, and it could be extended to anything. Treat me like a homeless person. Treat me like an immigrant person. Treat me like a trans person. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what does that feel like, and where does that land for you?
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't feel good, what are you doing about it?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to always be big, because you know, this man-made disease. It is bigger than us all. It
Mm-hmm.
is bigger than us all. It has had fabulous, great minds working on it for a long time.
Yes.
But it needs, and I was just going to say, it needs the face of white people. It's like I have a thing. You know, they talk a lot about domestic violence. Sometimes I would see things, you know, and of course when they're a lot of times talking, talking about man versus a woman, but of course domestic violence could be two men, two women. You know, it happens in different forms. And I always believe men need to talk to other men.
Mm.
And I think there are times where men hear men differently than they
Mm-hmm.
hear women. And
Mm-hmm.
that may, some people may be offended, but that's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there are things as a woman can say to another woman,
Yeah.
and the woman's take on something.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, white people, the ones who say I'm not racist, the ones who who are really mean all lives matter. Okay, well, if you really believe all lives matter, then you're going to ask yourself that question about treat me like a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Do all lives matter then? But it takes a certain humility. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
certain and we all have an ego. I know I do. I had to pull myself up. I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. Okay, Nicole, sit down. Just sit down. Or don't be trying to do too much. you know, but I try not to make that the center of myself, and that's a work in progress. But for anti-racism, it just needs truth and the willingness, and this is a hard one, to lose people you love.
Mm.
And because it costs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I know as a black person, it costs to be
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
Costs you. And not always in the way that people think. Like I've had black people who said to me, "You sound like you're white." Did Frederick Douglass sound like he was white? He was a very educated man. He was born a slave. I mean, of course, we don't have any videos of Frederick Douglass speaking, but from his writings, did James Baldwin sound like he was white? So there are all these foolishness and
Mm.
things that we have to fight against. But yeah, the whole anti-racism thing is, are you willing to lose people you love?
Mm.
Are you willing to stand up to them?
Yeah.
And also you have to find what that means for you. Because, family, I stay out of people's family lives. I stay out of people's marriages. I ain't, unless I know something where somebody didn't got,
Yeah.
that I'll be like, wait a minute. Because I up at night when I have a conscience and not help somebody. But you know what I mean? As a rule,
Yeah.
you for distance. But there are times when you do have to stand up.
Yeah.
You can't just sip the tea and the coffee when you're hearing this nasty conversation. And there are times also when to back up, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're with people who truly are from a different generation. And when I mean different generation, like they are so just
Yeah.
like they're still using the word colored. They're
Mm-hmm.
still using that word.
Yeah.
And and they don't think that they did anything wrong. But you have to be willing to lose.
It's interesting because you saying, like, even bringing that, oh, they're still using the word colored. Like, I think that it's interesting when I was listening also to Austin Channing, she was saying that um, she felt a lot of white people. And when she said this, I was like, mm-hmm. I think that I feel like I also agree with this and have experienced this, am guilty of this, that a lot of white people like rules because it protects them. And
Yeah.
I am guilty of that too. I feel like I'm so afraid all the time to say the wrong thing. I would never want to offend anyone, but I know that there's a part of that in me that is my ego, because I want to be good, and for the wrong reasons. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And not it I think it's like the same as like a spirit of religion, where rules protect so that we can stand behind the rules and actually feel good about ourselves somehow, because we obeyed the rules, we did the rules right or something. But I mean, I also don't feel like I know the rules either. I mean,
Well, and and that's a journey. Those are conversations, and it
mhm,
takes people being willing to listen, to understand, as somebody said, instead of listening to reply. And
Mm-hmm.
that's also pushing down of the ego, because we need that with each other,
Yeah.
to be able to ask a black person something. Ask. I'm not gonna walk around with the button, not yet, at least, and say with the button that says I'm a black person. uh, but open to having dialogue with
Yeah.
certain people. I mean, by certain people, there are people who haven't done the work, who haven't looked at history, who haven't read anything
Mm-hmm.
or watched. If you don't want to read, there are lots of documentaries.
Yeah.
Go and watch. Hopefully, that will probe something in you to say, "Oh, let me look at that." You know, we have to have dialogue, and
Mm-hmm.
fear serves to keep a wall up, and it keeps things out, but it also keeps things in. It keeps
Mm-hmm.
people out and keeps people in, and
Yeah.
that's not the way us should really live. And there's good fear, of course, and bad fear. And you can always talk to me. You can say, "Well, Nicole, I was wondering about this. I was wondering about that." But
Oh, I
that's
will. I definitely
but
will be. Yeah, you can bet.
but it's it takes that kind of willingness to see pitfalls, like companies that don't hire black people. For example, a couple of years ago, I'm not sure who it was, but it was some company, big clothing company, and they had a little boy, and they had this little white little boy, and the little black little boy had I think it was some top or whatever, had a little monkey on it. Now monkeys are cute. I think monkeys are adorable, but that when you see a black person, and that's I say when you see a black person, you see a monkey. No, but that has been a way to dehumanize black people
Mm-hmm.
and anybody with African blood, to say they're a monkey or they're an ape. And of course, is that true? No. But if you're a person in advertising, you would know, I'm not going to give this little black little boy this monkey shirt,
Mm-hmm.
because it sends the wrong message. But that becomes a question of, who did you have in your room talking to you?
Mm-hmm.
Who was able to voice their opinion, or were there people who tried to voice their opinion and you did not listen? Because
Yeah.
that's also it's that
Mm-hmm.
listening to understand, not listening to dismiss or listening to reply,
Yeah.
and letting people who have the control. Because actually, a couple of years ago, I had to tell. I was at an opera company, and there's a song by Stephen Foster, "Swanee River," ding da da dee da dum dee dee dee, and it's a lovely, charming little tune. And I laugh about it because there's a famous episode of The Honeymooners, which is one of my favorites, and Ed Norton's playing that tune over like ad nauseum. But that's where you check. Such a great episode. Um, but I was at this opera company, and I was working with some children, and there were not black people on the adult side of it at the table. And there was a company, they'd gotten to know me for a couple of years, and so there were these little black little girls in the room. And the Stephen Foster, if you go look at the lyrics, I think there's the word about darkies, oh, ding, 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 ding,
Oh
and
gosh.
and and they, now, to be fair, they changed the lyrics, but I was like, it's just, and I'm like, this, they can't be singing this. And they were so looking forward to it, they being the artistic staff. But then I had to throw a wrench into it all, and I felt like I was angry, and I was angry for obvious reasons, but that were obvious. Let me say obvious to me, but I was
Mm-hmm.
also angry because I'm like, why don't you know this? And
Mm.
then the person who had the final say in it wanted to have a meeting with me, and I was like, I was mad because I said I shouldn't be having a meeting with you.
Mm.
You should.
Oh
Sorry,
no.
myself is coming out now. Y'all should be having a meeting with you about this.
Yeah.
And they did change the lyrics, but I think one of the girls, the two little girls, the parent was a part of some Martin Luther King, some organization. And I was just like, y'all don't want to do this. And I found myself wanting to protect the girls, but also wanting to protect this company,
Mm.
because if, it could have been read many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I had made up my mind, well, I'm not going to be going. If they're going to sing this song, I'm not going to this performance. I was going to boycott it. But they cut the song. But it was I'm telling you, I'm shouting it out. Don't
Yeah.
do that.
Don't
And
do
there's
it.
no but. No, there's no but. Just don't do it. Like, trust me.
Yeah.
That's one of my other things I wrote was listen to me like a black person.
Mm.
Just like men should ask and say should have it. Listen to me like I'm a woman. See what that feels like.
Mm.
Is that a blessing or is it a curse? Do you feel received or are you dismissed?
Mm.
You know, so it's being able to, you know, I like what you were referring to, like the whole ego, like being able to push your ego down and be vulnerable, be willing to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will say this, I have a lot to learn within the LGBTQ
Mm-hmm.
community
Mm-hmm.
because there are things that I don't understand. I mean, what I do understand is they are people, they
Mm-hmm.
need to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
They want love just like I want love. They want inclusion like I want inclusion.
Yeah.
So that should not be the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
But talking, you may say something you don't mean to say, and it's not helpful to have somebody go off on you. I mean, I try to be very careful because I try to be conscious of that. But you have to have dialogue.
Well, yeah. And I think it's more important to have someone go off on you and actually be corrected and called out than to just to just pretend like it's not really hurtful, you know? And I think on the same topic of protection, first of all, like hearing you say that you don't feel protected hurts me just to know that, you know? And one of the other things that actually was in that beautiful conversation with Austin Channing is to protect someone else is to invite pain. And you
Mm,
have to be willing to invite the
wow.
pain
Oh, say that
because,
again.
yeah,
I
it's
love
not for
that.
me. This is all Austin Channing, but to protect someone else is to invite pain. And
Ooh,
if we are just living behind our own egos and our own trying to do the right things with the rules, we're missing out on the authenticity, the real connection. There's no connection without pain, actually. There's no real
no,
love without pain. Love is
there,
painful.
I love that. There's no real love without pain because and we're not talking abuse. We're talking,
Right.
you know, that not the pretty picture.
Clarify.
It's, no, you didn't need to clarify. I'm just saying, you know, I like to go in. I like
Yeah.
to get up, but multi-layer piece of different layers. But that's not a good metaphor. But you know, yeah, I love that. You know, TD Jakes, Bishop TD Jakes, who I love a lot of what he has to say.
Love
And
him.
one of the things, and oh, he's great. And one of the things he said in a sermon was that I don't want to talk to you if you haven't lost anything. If you haven't
Oh,
lost, I'm in that. And I'm, you know, forgive me if I'm not saying the right TD Jakes if you ever do see this, but anyway, saying, you know, I don't want to talk to someone who hasn't experienced pain, who hasn't felt loss. Like,
mm-hmm.
get away from me because
Yeah.
you don't know the tears. Which brings me to Archbishop Oscar Romero, who's one of my favorite heroes. He was killed in the 1980s, I believe in South America, and he was recently canonized in 2018.
Mm.
But one of the quotes, if I say it correctly, was there are things that can only be seen through eyes that have cried. And that just landed in my heart.
Yeah.
It landed in my soul because there are people who just cannot see what you see.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Do I need to see what it is to lose a child? I have no children now yet, if ever. But do I need to see what it is to lose a child to have compassion for the mother and father who have had to bury a child? Because unfortunately, I've known several people who have had to bury their children,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot, unfortunately, was due to violence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it's just like I don't need to do that. Do I need to have been pregnant to understand, to celebrate with somebody who is pregnant, or somebody who maybe they've gotten bad news. No, it's a thing of compassion. It's something that says, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
I may not stand, but I will hold your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm not in the room with you, I will hold your hand.
Yeah.
Because everyone, because I want to be very clear. I love people. My mother, that's one of the greatest gifts that my mother gave me was to love people. And because she was very serious about that. You couldn't come and say anything derogatory about anyone. It was very clear. It was very clear. And I'm grateful because my mother stressed character. She talked about character. Like, character means something. You could be a black fool, you could be a white fool, you could be a rich fool, you could be a poor fool. You could be a beautiful fool and maybe, or not so beautiful. You can be a fool as a fool as a fool.
Yeah.
Despite your, on all of these other things. It's how people treat you, because behavior is the ultimate. What you do is the ultimate explanation of what you want people to believe about you.
Yeah. Well, and I think empathy, just like what you're talking about, compassion and empathy, that is a huge, huge topic I think becoming more so a bigger topic in our culture, but I feel like that's still something we have to learn. What?
Yeah, we all learn. Sorry.
No, that's actually one of the things that I wrote down as I wanted to ask, what does empathy look like to you? Because I I can imagine when you say treat me like a black person, I can imagine what that would feel like, but I've never actually felt that. So, what would it look like to you, or how could it look for someone to truly empathize with that?
With what, the black experience, being black? Uh, here's, I mean, am I correct in my? Because I'm trying to make sure I'm
Yeah, yeah,
answering,
yeah, yeah.
answer correctly.
You are correct. Yeah.
Here's where it is for me, and this is for myself, for Nicole Joy Mitchell. Everyone, the emotions, sans color, sex, the emotions of losing something, not attaining a dream, having a wish that is unfulfilled. It's tapping into the emotions of yourself and allowing that this person feels that too. And it seems crazy because it's so bizarre. It seems so nuts to have to tell somebody, yeah, black people feel pain too, because there were all these studies that there were people who were saying that black people, we just don't feel pain the same way. We can just take it. No, that's not true.
What?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And people have that. They think we could just put up with anything, and a lot of it is us. There's the great poem, "We Wear the Mask," and we put the mask on sometimes so well because we have to. That's our armor. But it's the empathy part of it is really asking yourself those hard questions, like, treat like a black person. What does that feel like? Really exploring that, and want that for your child. And if you don't want that, why don't you want it? Where does that sit? Because it's. I mean, listen, it's hard for somebody to know. If you're not black, you just don't know. I mean, they've done some things where somebody was made up to look black, and they walked around in the world, and they felt very. They felt watched or ignored. They felt that people were just moving away from them. I mean, it could have also been that the makeup job was so bad, but there was this thing that was done. But it's just the human connection, and also think, listen to. It takes. Again, it goes back to the ego. It takes accountability. One of my favorite quotes, I've plastered all over my Instagram page and on Facebook, is accountability feels like an attack when you are not ready to acknowledge how your behavior harms others. And it
Yes.
takes a pause, because I mean, it's human to, if somebody is pointing their fingers at you and saying something, angrily, of course it's natural to like, wait a minute, whoa. And you want to defend yourself, and that's human.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a part where you can receive that information and have that pause and say, is that true?
Mm-hmm.
And be able to allow that person the space to say why it may be why it is true for them.
Yeah.
Like, you did such and such a thing,
Yeah.
but with this person, and I felt this way.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to receive it, even if you don't agree with it, because that's going to happen too. But hear the person.
Mm-hmm.
And also, empathy also looks like holding the people who raised you and influenced your thinking accountable, because
Yeah.
there are many mothers and fathers and well-meaning aunts and uncles and cousins and
Mm-hmm.
grandparents and
Yeah.
godparents, and a cousin who's not a cousin but like cousin, who become family because y'all went on vacation together and love each other, but you've heard things.
Mm-hmm.
And empathy would be, if you are in the space and you are this all white people, or rather there's no black people around, and you hear something, are you willing to stand up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you willing to, and again, are you willing to lose?
Yeah.
Because
Are you, yeah.
it's going to get uncomfortable.
Yeah. Are you willing to invite the pain?
Yes. Are you willing to invite the pain? Because
Yeah.
and I get, I don't want pain. I don't want pain either.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this. I've been artistically, I've been trying to create, and where I can, and heal, and it's not easy.
But you know what is more painful than pain? Resisting pain.
Yeah.
People are not aware that that is the truth, but the more that I have studied my own healing and psychology, I was reading one of my favorite quotes from Scott M. Peck is, or M. Scott Peck, I'm not really sure. I think it's M. Scott Peck. One of my favorite quotes from M. Scott Peck goes something like, to the extent that we avoid our own emotional suffering, to that end, will we experience mental illness.
Mm.
And when we resist our pain, which the whole world wants to resist pain, we are programmed in our brain because our what's the word, that when we're cavemen, it's like we have this in our brain. It's like what's the word, it's a primal instinct to avoid pain. We want to avoid danger, we want to survive, right? And so for us, we think survival means avoiding pain, but actually the opposite is true in our society now, because we are not cavemen running around trying to um, yeah, survive physically.
Right.
And
We're not being tigers and stuff.
hopefully not, but
Hopefully
what,
not.
hopefully not. Yeah. But what happens when we resist is actually we experience mental illness, because the resisting of the pain causes suffering. And I know firsthand, I mean, the way that I can identify at the moment, I have a very dear friend who has resisted and withheld love from me behind rules to protect herself. And it's more painful than if she would have simply just told me the truth and said what she felt, really. But I
Right.
think, as an example in general, it's like learning to feel our pain is something as a society we need to learn how to do, and we need to embrace.
Yes, I agree. Because there's a quote that I read somewhere: unacknowledged pain seeks to be acknowledged. Even if you try to keep it under wraps and put on a happy face, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
It come out when you least expect it, and where you didn't want it to come out, but it's going to come out.
Yeah.
So knowing that your pain will be received. And
Mm-hmm.
also releasing the fact that it may or may not be received, but I have to get this out. Because those are hard conversations to have
Yeah.
with people, especially people you love,
Yeah.
to say, talk to you about this. This is hard for me, but this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And trusting that whatever will come, you're not in control of that other person. It's a choice to
Mm-hmm.
be, in each other's lives, however that is. It's a choice for the most part, for the people you don't have to work with and have to see.
Yeah.
But trusting that, can I trust this person with my pain?
Yeah.
Because that's, like, I'm still, listen, I'm not with anybody, but when I'll know he's the right man, when I know I can trust him with my pain.
Yeah.
And then I can trust her with my pain.
Yeah.
Because that's the ultimate love. And even in families, can your children, if you have children, can your children trust you with their pain?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets a little tricky with parents because, you don't want to give your kids too much because there's some parents overshare. It's like, no, that's for you and your counselor,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? But trusting people with pain. And I think that, and also trusting that if you're the person on the receiving end, trusting that you're strong enough that to survive hearing something you didn't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to fall apart
Mm-hmm.
if somebody tells me something painful that I may have done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to all of a sudden dissolve and
Right.
my life is over, my bank account is emptied and I'm homeless. No, I'm going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm receiving knowledge. And who knows, you maybe even get in a deeper relationship, a friend that you didn't even see coming.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I
I, I, Nicole, tell me or tell us, what is it like being a Black woman in the arts?
well, let me just tell you this: I've been Black all my life. Surprise, and I'm comfortable with my Blackness. And I really am. I've always wanted to be smaller, and I've lost some weight over the years, and it's like, okay, but I got me some cookies downstairs. They were good, but I'm
I
comfortable.
love you.
I love you too. I'm comfortable. I mean, I don't apologize for it. I love it. I love it. And it's not. I love it not at the expense of somebody else, because I can celebrate other people. Like I have a friend of mine. She's got this gorgeous porcelain, like Victorian skin. She doesn't tan, and she's over my pasty white skin. I'm like, girl, please, that skin is gorgeous, and it's gorgeous. I mean, just smooth, and I love it. And it's her skin, because I can love that. That's just how I roll. But being a Black person in arts, I walk in knowing I've got to be good. I have always been good now, but I know that the
Since
bar.
I've known you, you've always been good.
Well, we're always harder. We're always hardest on ourselves, because there's some times I'm like, ooh, girl, what now? But I know when I'm walking into a production where predominantly it's mostly white, and I maybe like one or two Black people or part of a Black cast, especially where the company, and usually the companies are white executives, white conductor, white, all of the behind the scenes. I'm not in control of them. My thing is to bring my best, because if you're going to talk about me, you've already done it. I have only to leave what I can give you. Mm-hmm. Give my best. Mm-hmm. And you will receive it or you won't. I'm not in control of any of that, because for me, and this is where my faith is so important to me, what God has for me is for me. And no man, neither white, nor Black, nor rich, nor poor, or woman, or about to change over, whatever, can take that away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that I haven't been hurt in this business. Doesn't mean that I don't see it. I've seen people, say certain things. I've heard people say certain things. I've watched the behaviors, and again, and it's always these little things. It's nothing, explosive where you're like, wait a minute, let me take this wig off. It's usually not like that.
Yeah.
You know, um, I go in already knowing that one, be prepared. If somebody's going to talk about you, they're going to talk about you. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, fix it, but be comfortable because it's already up. No matter who the artist is, people are already, they're scared. Some people hide it very well if they haven't sung a role before, and here they are singing this role, and the eyes are, we need to comfort each other.
Yeah.
But I can't, that stuff, I can't deal with it because I just can't. I mean, I've known that there's some people, they didn't come and say it, that they didn't hire, that they didn't want me for a certain part because I was Black. But I knew, and it's hard because I can't go into court and say, well, I just knew. Well, you got to have
yeah.
a paper trail. I don't have a paper trail, but I got my good.
Yeah.
You're not going to, get anywhere with that. But I saw things, would hear things, and it hurts. But you have to choose what's the best course of action for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because who and what they are, I'm not going to undo that with my little time with them. And if I'm not careful, because stress makes you sick. It sits in the throat, it sits in your body, and you need your entire body to sing, to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Now, if I hear something really crazy, I'll raise my hand and be like, wait a minute. I will, and I try to do it respectfully. I believe in that. Speak to other people the way you would like to speak, them to speak to you. And I try to point out certain things, and either they'll listen or not. But I do have to say, there was a time I was working, got this gig, and it was a workshop, and I needed this little job. I was like, Lord, I need a job. I was like, I need and I got a call, and I got an email, and then or call, whatever it was. And so I went in to sing to audition, and they were like, "Oh, we would really like you because you were recommended from so and so," and I said, "Okay, sure." And so there was this aria that they had. Now, when they sent it to me, I'm a contralto, low voice, and when they sent the aria to me, it was kind of musical theater, like a lot of contemporary opera sometimes has that musical theater feel to it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they sent it to me in this one key, and it had like a bluesy feel to it, but it wasn't blues, but they wanted a real classically trained opera singer. And I said, oh, okay. And I worked with the piece, and I worked with it because I like to do basics. I said, okay, let me learn the melody. Like with Handel, learn the melody. Don't be adding all that other stuff. Melissa was trying to be fancy. Yeah. Tonic. Sorry, I'm being priest, but that tonic is, honey. You know where it is. And I had this piece of music, and I learned it, and I went into the rehearsal, and I was the only Black person in this rehearsal, and they started playing it, but it was in a lower key. Now, technically, is that a problem for me? No, but because of the style, it made it more bluesy blues, yeah, than where I felt comfortable. And I kept saying, I was like, just want to let you know, I am not a gospel singer. I look like I could be a gospel singer. I know where to I can sing a little gospel, but that's not my style. I know when to stand back. Mm-hmm. Just like, what's that Stevie Nicks song? Stand back, stand. I know what to stand. But I said, when they said, what key do you have? And I told them the key, and they said, oh, you didn't get the new printout. And so they went and printed a copy, and I started singing the song, and it was a blues. It just became this bluesy number. And it was pretty cool. It wasn't a great song, wasn't terrible, but it was a bluesy, it became more of a blues number. And I said to these people in all white, I said, I'm so sorry, but it seems to me like you want a gospel singer.
Mm-hmm.
And they would not listen to me. And I said, well, okay, well, I'm going to work this out. I'm going to sing this little song. But I was like, this doesn't seem like a project that I can do. And I had signed a contract. And I said, well, and it was for, it was for a short amount of time. Well, at least what looks like a short amount of time, because the hours that it takes and doing things and whatever. I went home and I was like, these people, they didn't listen to me, but they want a blues singer. They want a gospel singer.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew who to recommend. I knew who to recommend for them, but they were insistent that they were right.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be various things. But I just felt like you were not hearing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call the next day from this person. They said, I'm so sorry to call you. And I can't remember exactly what they said, but basically, yeah, they want a gospel singer. And I'm on the phone and I took the phone from my ears and I was like, I know. Like I was trying to tell you,
Yeah.
but they said, well, we'll pay you such and such. And I was like, okay, and I went and got my little check, and I was like,
Good.
but you know, not being heard, not having somebody hear you,
Mm-hmm.
and not having somebody see you. And now somebody could say, well, that doesn't sound like that is a racial thing. And maybe not for them. For me, I just know that I didn't feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I don't want to say it is my people's music. And no, I'm not a gospel singer, but I know gospel. And I knew y'all want a gospel singer because I'm like, I hear this, but they were insistent. And so I felt this dismissal, and then, yeah, it's crazy. But, Toni Morrison, one of the things she had to say, God rest her soul, about racism, especially in the arts, it keeps you from being creative. It keeps you
Mm.
asking
Whoa.
questions over and over again.
Mm.
It keeps you from what you were meant to do. And isn't that great? Like all this crazy, it keeps you. So you have to find a way. Like one night, I was here at home. Well, doing COVID, of course, where I was going to be, and I was I was at home, and I was listening to Nina Simone, her version of singing "The Times They Are Changing." The times are changing, and I love Bob Dylan's voice and how he did it. I love his version. It's his song, a fabulous song that he gave the world. But Nina's, if you've never listened to it, it's worth listening to. And I heard different things. I heard different inflections, and it made my heart weep. And I didn't really want to
Mm.
listen to it because I knew that it was going to make me weep.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to. And this one particular night, I screamed. I mean, I screamed. My poor cat, well, he was downstairs. But I really screamed,
Aw.
and because there was so much. And
Ah.
I felt a little better because I needed to scream. And I said, okay, Nicole, where's your voice in all of this? What can you do? And so I wrote a poem, and inspired by the murder of Mr. George Floyd. And I said, because there are things that want to come out. And I started working on it. And it's a performance poem. It's something very different.
Ooh,
It'll be
cool. I
for,
can't wait to hear.
yeah, it's not pretty. It's very sarcastic, and it's meant to make you uncomfortable. Um, it made me uncomfortable, but it also made me. I'm like, I don't know how the people will receive it, and I said, you can't do that. You can't create wondering how other people are going to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work it to the best place that you know how to work it. And I'm thinking about adding a drum to it or something
Yeah.
like this spontaneous. Not myself. I need somebody else on the drum. But I'm pretty busy moving, and it's like I think 5 minutes, maybe less than that. But I channeled that, and I've never shared any of my songs, but I started writing songs. I wrote my own Lord's Prayer, and
Wow.
I there were things that were just wanting to come out. I said, you got to take this. You have to create, girl. You have to create.
I
And I
love
don't,
that.
but yeah, you have to create. I got to channel this somewhere because it wants to come out. Because I feel like I feel like I have, for years, I felt like I had this feeling of tangled Christmas lights in my belly. And except now I feel like it has barbed wire. So it's tangled barbed wire. And I'm just like, it's cutting me because I'm not getting my stuff out. I'm
Oof.
not getting it out. Like, I need to get this out of me. And God is so good because He put several things inside of me to get out that I haven't
Mhm.
gotten out yet. But anyway, all that being said, I took my pain and channeled it into something artistic because that's what needed to happen. You know, because in the arts, one of the things I've learned, no matter what color you are, a lot of times you have to make your own stuff.
Yeah.
You have to make it and leave it there. You know, but yeah, being Black in the arts, there's a lot of change that needs to happen, especially behind the scenes, especially because that's where a lot of decisions are made and aren't made.
Mhm.
And I had an experience where a company did not think of its Black performers. It wasn't meant as a harshness, but it was, you didn't think about us. It was later brought to their attention and they were like, oh, well, we need to fix that. Yeah, you do. And
Like
they did.
in general they didn't? Was it like in the context of a show or
Well, it was the behind the scenes of the show. There was the
okay.
behind the scenes where there were things that they could have had in place for Black performers that they did not have in place. And it just, and again, it wasn't done, I don't feel, out of cruelty, but they weren't used to working with a whole lot of Black folks. And when they had a whole lot of Black folks, they weren't prepared.
Hmm.
And the meetings that were had, and it wasn't anything harsh and nasty because you have to have dialogue. Because I had a wonderful time at this company, I had a great time, but y'all need to have some people behind the scenes to see things that you missed,
Mhm.
not to punish you, to to embarrass you. It's
Mhm.
actually to make you better.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's really to make you. It's really to help make you shine
Yeah.
because you want to,
Yeah.
you know. But there were things like there was somebody very significant who uh, was very. I don't think they meant in this way, but they were dismissive. I found what, and I can't go into too many details, but they were a bit dismissive. And this was after they had talked about inclusion and all this other stuff,
Okay.
but their behavior was very telling.
Mm.
It was a bad move on their part, in my opinion, because
Mhm.
I brought it up at a meeting, and other people, they were shaking their heads, and and I think the person, I don't know them very well, but I think they're a nice person. I've heard wonderful things about them, but you didn't come by to say hi,
Mhm.
and we needed to see your face because it says something. It's like you go into somebody's home and the host never greets you, or you get
Mm.
one part, you don't get the other. Now,
Mhm.
okay, yes, maybe they're sleeping or whatever, or they're on a trip, but if they're in the house, it's
Yeah.
weird, and they know they're not sick. They just downstairs in this other, and they hanging out. It's weird,
Mhm.
and that's how I felt. It's like, oh, where's the other host? And it was weird.
Mm.
I mean, you get over it because, like, you got to move on. You got to get your money. You
Yeah.
got to work
Yeah.
and do your best. But there's the behind the scenes needs to change within the
Mm.
arts. If I had to
Mhm.
say it, because you're going to have a lot of experiences where you feel dismissed and people don't see you as well as I will, and other Black folk who are in the business will have a lot of that happening because they don't have people behind the scenes watching out,
Mhm.
or
And
and
that
it's a white person,
mhm.
like as a woman. If everybody is a man making the decisions, how can they prepare for the women?
Right.
We're going to design the
This,
women
yeah.
and not talk about what women need in the bathroom. We're going to, yes, yes, a toilet, yes, a sink to wash your hands, but if you're going to be a specialty business and you're going to, cater to women and you want them to feel relaxed, there's certain little things. The soap has to be a certain way, and sometimes, you know what I mean. It elevates you,
Yeah.
and it makes the other person, even if the littlest thing, it makes them feel, oh, they prepared for me. They prepared.
It's the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you don't have people behind in the system who look like the ones who are complaining, or not even complaining, I don't like that word. They are stating, "Hey, you didn't do this,
Yeah.
and I need to do it." They are allowed to be dismissive.
Yeah.
But it's change behind the scenes and also make your own stuff. And what I'm doing right now is trying to channel my pain, because I've got a lot of pain that is not even connected to COVID. It's not even, I mean, a lot of this has been a trigger for me, actually. The whole George Floyd murder has been a big trigger, and stuff that I've had as a Black person locked away, put away, stuffed down. When you spoke about like it creates a mental illness if you're not dealing with pain.
Yes.
And I want to, at that time, I shall say now, is that and I can't diagnose anyone, but there's a lot of mental frustration and stress that has been pushed down because you got to put on the face.
Yeah.
And now it's like this stuff that you've had pushed down, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then and this floodgates, and it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah.
So yeah, it's exhausting, but there is hope. I'm going to hold on to that. I know we've talked.
Me too. Me too.
I'm going to
Yeah.
hold on to. And I thank you for doing this, because this is also very important. And, it's connection. It's connection, and it's also vulnerability. So I thank you for being vulnerable. And I think, I thank you for that. I thank you for making space for me.
It is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And Nicole, you are such a dear, extraordinary soul, and just for those people listening, Nicole and I met at the Manhattan School of Music back in the day, and we have some really fantastic memories together.
Yeah. When did you come? Did you start in 2003 or 2002?
2003. Do you remember Mirandolina?
Oh. I look like a big old piece of candy. Actually, I love
I did too. Because
they made these like 50 dresses for us, and I bought my dress, but I gotta have it taken in. I gotta have it.
I played that too. Lucia and I were a team, and we were like on other opposite casts.
Laster. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have her last name correct. I'm friends with her on Facebook. Sorry, Meredith. But she was so lovely. We had fun. We had fun. It was such a wacky, crazy opera that never performed. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. I had a great time.
Yeah.
And getting the score, I was like, what the? I said, I'm gonna have to put this on a pillow.
Nicole, did you know, since you were when did you know that you wanted to be a singer?
Well, as a singer, I'll say I was a little girl, and it was Luciano Pavarotti, and he was with this little boy soprano. It was during the Christmas time. I was a little girl, missing teeth. I had a bunch of papers on the floor, and I was scribbling, doing something, because I always had papers, scribbling, writing something. My mother was in the kitchen. It was Christmas time, and Luciano Pavarotti, who I didn't even know who he was. I was a little kid, and this boy soprano was singing Gesù Bambino by Pietro Yon, and the tune is and the boy soprano was was
Yeah.
so beautiful. It just, my voice is all so low now, but it was so, oh,
Oh my gosh. Everybody's going to die when they hear you sing. I'm so excited. Can't wait.
oh,
I'm going to put that
no,
on the end of the podcast. So
oh,
get
you're so,
excited. Her voice is so
oh,
amazing.
but yeah, it was that when I was a little girl. And my mother, she came out of the kitchen. I remember it so vividly. And she came out, it was a small apartment in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And she came out of the kitchen and we both loved this song. And so one day, it was like a day afterward, I was going shopping with my mother, it was on a weekend. And we were in we were in the subway station, and subways usually have pretty great acoustics, and there was nobody around. So my mother said, "All right, hit it, baby." And I went, "Oh."
Oh my gosh, I love that story.
And then she went, because we didn't know what the words were. We're just like, we just going, just vocalize. I didn't know vocal at the time. It was like I was, because I loved it, and it landed, and I have been listening to Blondie. I used to take my mother's slips, and I used to make, on my hair. My mother would get upset because little black girls, little black girls get their hair oiled and greased. And so when I had oil and grease on my hair, and I took my mother's lips, was the guy that said she was mad because I was trying to sing and call me. I should have been singing. I was like, I don't even think my mother was listening to the words. I didn't know the words really. I was like, oh, man, I didn't know, I love, and I listened to all sorts of things. My mother played country music and loved Crystal Gale. That would make them really long, like Rapunzel, because Crystal has super long hair. She's the sister of the other country superstar, Loretta Lynn. That's her sister. And so, yeah, she had this super long hair, Crystal Gale. And her song was, "Don't it make my brown eyes blue?" And I don't really know the words, but I just remember that part. And and I loved it. But it was that stood in that got me. Like it really put its hooks into me.
Wow.
And I was that my mother, when I was always singing at church. When we were at church, I was there singing little songs. Jesus loves me, yes I know, singing little songs.
Mm-hmm.
But I had in schools, I was always in a choir. I was always singing. And at every school that I went to, I was always in music. Mm-hmm. And I didn't start taking private lessons until voice lessons until I was like 15 or 16 years old, where there's a video out there where I look like a black Betty White. I ain't kidding. I look like black Betty White. I had this dress on.
Oh.
But I took my first voice lesson at Brooklyn Music School and Playhouse, which is right behind the Brooklyn Academy of Music. People call it BAM. And that was the path for me. And my mother had my first piano teacher, Mr. Logan, God rest his soul. A very skinny man. He used to have this big old watch. Sorry. Big gold watch that used to have a whole lot of space that you can fit your other hand in there. We were like, why didn't he tighten it up? But he was a fabulous pianist. And he told my mother, he said, don't, and I was a little girl, I was probably like maybe 10, but he told my mother, don't let anybody mess up her voice. He said, she's going to sing. Don't let anybody. And as a kid, I wasn't really thinking about it. I just knew that I liked to sing. Mm-hmm. But I had that path. And thank God for my mother that she didn't say to me, oh, get a real job. Like a lot of parents, or be practical. Yeah. And I did that. But my mother's like, no, I want her to follow her dream. And she never, turned me down for that. And she never said, so where are you singing? You're not singing where? Well, you need to give this up. Yeah. It was always support. And listening to there was an interview, Alec Baldwin interviewed Spike Lee. And in this interview, Spike Lee said, more dreams have been killed by parents. He said, like they didn't support them because Yeah, a lot of dreams were killed by parents because they didn't support them, and it was also, it was fear based.
Yeah.
But my mother, she go, and she
Yeah.
made sure I had the white dress and
It's
that I
awesome.
looked presentable, and you know, and but yeah, that was the path, and it was also here. It landed, and I just recently, and it's kind of, it's weird to say since I've been singing for a long time, but it's just recently in the past 2 or 3 years, I would say, where I said, yes, this is what you were born to do.
I was just going
You
to
were,
ask, do you feel you were born to do it?
oh, I know I was. This is what I was born. I was born for this. I was
Wow.
made for,
Wow.
and it's scary because it is a responsibility to have a talent. It is a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
To whom much is given, much is required, or
Yeah.
much is expected, as some people will
Mm-hmm.
say. And it's a weight,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to carry the load. I've had wonderful people. I lost a dear friend earlier this year, Gregory Trupiano. Greg, he always been Greg Trupiano, who was a wonderful champion of mine, and just a beautiful soul and beautiful spirit. And he still lives in my heart, and I can still hear his voice. But he really supported me. He came to a performance while I was doing the Verdi Requiem. Was my first Verdi, well, was my second performance of a Verdi Requiem. I didn't have
Oh.
the I didn't have the technique to be singing it. I was singing on a prayer. I mean, it was perfect for me, but I was just like, it was all these things that were wrong with it. But I was singing that piece, and I went up to that high note. That high note disappeared like it was never there. It was. This is water, by the way, because I know I've been laughing a lot. I don't want anybody to think this is water. But this is, but he heard my voice and he invited me. He stood with me and created so many opportunities and put me on, also helped my path. So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. Can you think of a time when your faith was stretched the most in your journey along the way towards your vision of what you feel like you were born to do?
Oh yeah. I the reason I asked you when you had come to Manhattan School of Music is because when you came, I had rejoined coming to school because I started in 2001,
Mm.
and uh, my first full week of classes was actually the week of 9/11
Oh,
in
gosh.
2001, and we had started the week before, but it was like in the middle. So I was like, that was my first full week, and I was looking forward to it, and
Oh,
being
wow.
there, and 9/11 happened, and I went through the school year. I had a fellowship that helped me, but school's expensive, and so I finished the first year, and I was like, oh, I got to see about trying to get some more money because it's expensive. I mean, I'm still paying my student loans, and I trust and know that God is. I mean, He's helping me. I'm going to get it done, and one day it will be paid off. Um, but I had to take a year off, and I was so frustrated. I was so mad. I remember going to sign the papers, like, yeah, I'm going to take a little break because you had to fill out, paperwork. And I was so heartbroken. And then I was going to try to find some money, and I had some jobs, and I said, okay, well, this is where you got to trust God, which was not easy, and it's not easy
Mm-hmm.
because I was very upset and hurt by it. But I met this woman who said that she was going to help me with school and help pay money, for me to go to school. And I was like, I was like, what a blessing, because she met me. I was at a master class and I sang Ulrika's aria, Re
Mm.
dell'Abisso affrettati, King of the Abyss.
Cool.
I sang it. I'm still working that aria out, but I love that aria. I'm like, why does she have to put the ass part there? Let us do. But I mean, it's a fabulous aria. And this woman, she introduced herself as, I think, Countess something or whatever, and she was, and
A
she took me
countess
out
from where? Where was she? What? A
to
countess of.
Georgia, from the country of Georgia, something like that. But
Wow.
or but as what somebody pointed out, they were like, she probably really didn't have much money or something. I was just like, I don't know, but that was her. her title. Of course, titles are useless here in America, but if you have them, you know, you won't use your title.
Mm-hmm.
And so this woman said that she was going to help me, and she took me to lunch, and she wanted to know my plans. And I went and got stuff from school, and I said, I'm going to be starting back to school, and I got the paperwork to show her. And then as school was getting closer, because she wanted to see certain things, I called her, and it was the most hurtful thing. I called her, and she said, I decided I'm only going to help one of the winners of the competition. And I was like, and we had never talked about it. And she says, I said, oh, but we never had, you know, I never said that I was doing the competition. And she says, well, that's my decision. Don't call here again. And she hung up the phone on me.
Oh no.
And it was so upsetting. And I said to God, there was a prayer that Maya Angelou, the great Maya Angelou, God rest her soul as well, brilliant mind. She said, if the only prayer you say is thank you, that will be enough. And I remember I literally got on my knees and tears were flooding my eyes. And I said, thank you. And I called a friend of mine, and she said, Nicole, she said something I have never forgotten. I don't even know that was still sitting there, but I've forgiven it. You know what? Because it's my friend Indira Mahajan, fabulous soprano, beautiful spirit. She said, Nicole, you know, sometimes you don't want the money because of who it's attached to, because there's something attached to. And she gave me her story about somebody who had stiffed her out of, you know, paying her. And that gave me perspective, you know, because there's something that comes, there's an energy that lives. I mean, can I say, oh, all my money is blessed and good, you know? I have what I've earned, and I'm trying to be smart with it. But that was a moment for me where I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Maybe I'm, you know, I looked, and then finally I went and told my mother what happened, and she helped me. I mean, I took out loans, and because you know you need somebody to co-sign, and God bless my mom, she did do that. But I went on, and it was hard, and it's still hard. You know, there are moments where you're just like, I've been working so hard, I've been doing this part, and why isn't this door open? And there were times, like a couple of years ago, there were doors that were open to me, and then all of a sudden things just fell apart, and not because of anything I did. Mm-hmm. It was just a circumstance. One company, they were putting on a production, and then it got scrapped, and nice contract. It was one of the nicest contracts I had ever had, and I was so looking forward to it, and it fell apart. And I was so frustrated because I said, wait a minute, I put myself out here, because it's not easy to put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. I said, I put myself out there, God, I did this, I did that, and I don't have this job, and I also don't have this one, because the one job I had turned down was it was a nicer check than the other one that I was so happy, because the one that I kept stayed a part of, they had asked me first, and it was also a new project. And something was like, honor your word. Because I could have been like, okay, look, y'all, I can't do this project. I'm going to go here to Switzerland or whatever it was. But I said, no, keep your word and stay with this, because you're making contacts with people, and not even just that, it was the right thing. But then that all scrapped. And I was like, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It was hard, you know? Yeah. So there are times where I did feel, it's like, well, what am I going to do? I mean, I had a year of teaching at New York public high schools as a substitute teacher. That's a book. But anyway, I always, that feeling that I had as a little girl from Luciano Pavarotti and this little boy soprano with this beautiful mop of hair, singing that duet together, that feeling was always there. And it just said, keep going.
Yeah.
And everybody's path is different. And that's one of the things, you know, and of course I've had letdowns. My final year to do the Met competition, I was making it through. I made it to the second level. I got to the second level, and I got sick. And my foolish self, my foolish self decided, well, I'm going to still go and perform. I needed to sit down. I needed to, I had no voice, and I was trying to, I was just singing off of,
Mm.
and and then, I mean, and that was just my desperation. And that was like, no, I haven't come this far, and to not have this happen, I haven't come this far. And it
Mm.
didn't happen, and I of course did not place. I got a little check, which I was grateful for, and a little, something. And I got to speak to the judges and say, listen, if somebody recorded this today and they asked me, was that my voice, I would say, no, that's not my voice. That's my singing, but that's not my voice.
Mm-hmm.
I have cold and whatever. And they were so gracious about it, and I kept, of course, my distance because I'm very panicked about that for other people's safety always.
Mm-hmm.
um and they were like, oh, they understood. They said, oh, because they could hear. They said, oh, and whatever. And I just said, I was like, Nicole, that was dumb, but it was a great lesson
Mm.
because I learned it's okay to say I cannot. I have to back out. I cannot give my best
Yeah.
because you don't want to leave that. And it was out of state. It was another state, and another. I was like, okay, good. But it was still, it took me a while to get over it. I mean, I did another competition after that where it was better singing, and I was healthy, and I got a nice award. I didn't get the top prize. I was like, I need that top prize. So I was like, wait a minute. But I had somebody who was going to bat for me. They were like, no, she should have had, and whatever.
Yeah.
And but all that being said, I learned lessons, that you have to take from it. But the funniest thing was when the final Met competition happened, the one I was trying to get into, and this one girl that was a mezzo, she won with arias that I would have been singing. And and then I was
Mm.
mad. I was happy for her, and because I do believe in that, I do believe be happy for others. But then later it would come to me, Nicole, you were not ready. You
Mm.
were not ready. Because a lot of times with competitions, of what I've heard in some of the big ones, there are people who try to move you on to this next stage a lot sooner because it
Mm-hmm.
can propel your career.
Yeah.
And I know it has done that, but then it's also left them on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And I just said, okay, that wasn't my path. I wasn't prepared, and I wasn't. So I was grateful, when I had to put my ego and
Mm-hmm.
aside,
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't ready for that. Your voice is still growing and changing. You weren't ready. And at the time, I wasn't calling myself a contralto then. I knew I was a contralto. I felt it, but I hadn't. I was still mezzo, but I was like, that. It never felt right. It
Wow.
never. But when I said, no, I am a contralto, and I was listening to other contraltos and listening to recordings, and Kathleen Ferrier and Maureen Forster, like listening to these voices and some other. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is home. That's home. But anyway, yeah, I've had my moments, and it's not easy, and you have to be smart, and smart being patient, you know, waiting with a good attitude.
Mm.
As it was like Joyce Meyer, she would say, patience is the ability to wait with a good attitude, and
Mm.
I modified it, which I love that. I love that. But
Ah,
then
that's
I added,
beautiful.
it's great, but I also added to it, patience is the ability to wait with a good attitude while you watch others get what you want.
Ooh.
Because that's,
Oh, that is hard. That is hard, but it is so
but
true.
it's like, I'm watching other people get what I want,
Yeah.
but it also feels good to cheer for other people. It does.
Yeah, it
Really does.
does. It
And
does.
that's the
And
best.
that's empathy in the other direction, right?
Yeah,
Like that is the best, well, not the
too.
best kind, but it's also the best feeling kind of empathy when you can,
So great
yeah.
to cheer for, and it makes me very defensive. I'm very defensive of artists, even if we're allowed to like what we like and not like what we don't like. But you cannot be around me and criticize another artist,
Yes.
and this it doesn't sit right with me. And I had somebody do that a couple of
Amen.
months ago, and they felt my chilliness. And I usually don't be. I'm not really a chilly person. I try not to be. I am definitely my own person,
Mm-hmm.
but I I don't like that. Give
Mm-hmm.
them room. Because
Yeah.
the thing that happen, especially with performing artists, yes, you could be in your practice room. Yes, your teacher could have sung at La Scala, the Met. all the big opera houses, Bayreuth, all these great, fabulous places, and sung with this and worked with this conductor and that conductor. But you yourself, and just like them, they had to learn on the field. And
Mm-hmm.
there's something, like Brene Brown, it was something like, if you're not uh, in the field, whatever, something, I'm not listening to your getting your kick.
Yeah.
I'm not for
Yeah.
feedback. But you are in the field getting your kicked. Have compassion to know this person is working it out.
Yeah.
Give them the room to work it out.
Yes.
And
Amen.
that's why things happen in performances. I had things happen. I've forgotten words. Orchestra didn't start because I was this one word I needed to say and I didn't say it. I couldn't say it. It was crazy.
That's hilarious.
Colleagues got me and I said the word and I said, okay. And then I went and I said, okay. And just learning what that feels like to be in your body. But you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like, that's one thing I'm very defensive of. Even if I don't particularly like you as a person, I will defend your talent.
Uh-huh.
I will, because talent and hard work, I will always give that its due. Ain't your color, it's not your sex, it's none of that. Talent and hard work, I will always give its due. But yeah, I like being there for my other artists,
I love
because
that.
it's hard to put yourself out there. It's
It
hard.
is. It is. It is. And we
Vulnerable.
can't compare ourselves to other people either, because when we are criticizing other people or judging other people, then we're also comparing ourselves at the same time. And yeah.
Yeah, and that's no way to be, because you can't create that way. And I watched last night. I watched a PBS documentary, American Masters, on Mae West, and that was a woman who, she was very. I'm sure you know of Mae West. Do you know of? Oh, well, she was I think like 1920s or 30s. She was born in 1893 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
But she was this cheeky woman. She was born in Brooklyn. Yay! And one of her was, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?" She was very cheeky, and that was her persona. That was her, and she was quite like she had all of these great, fabulous one-liners, and she was somewhat like a Dorothy Parker esque, but more just she always pushed the buttons. And look her up if you get a chance to
Okay.
watch it. Oh, it's worth watching. But she made herself. She created. She had tragedies and whatever, and not whatever. She had things that shaped her life that were both positive and not so positive. And her creating the character that would be Mae West, not just only on screen but off screen as well, because she loved men, and at that time you were expected to get married, have some kids, let your husband, be the housewife. She wasn't doing none of that. She got married, she left her husband, and she went, to be Mae West. And she was amazing. But what I loved about it was that she didn't, and I'm going to say she didn't care, because she did care a little bit, but she had this chutzpah, she had this strength about her that said, I'm creating this person, and I'm going to live the way I want to live. Yeah, you may talk about me, but I'm going to live the way I want to live. And there's something amazing about that.
Yeah.
As long as you're not hurting anybody else, or, I'm not for that. If other people have strong opinions, okay, they have an opinion. All right, don't come to see it. But because it's not easy, but to let that stuff out. But yeah, I defend artists, and I have to learn to defend myself. And when I say protect myself in a way that that's not the word I want to use, but give myself space to learn, to like, okay, this may work, like this performance poem, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to perform the way I want to perform it.
Yes.
And it's going to where it lands.
Yes.
And but it just has to land. And whatever, I'm not setting up a colony with it. I'm just gonna let it land and be about life. But yeah, I just, as much as I am there for other people, or feel that I like to be there for other people, especially other artists, I have to also learn to be that for myself. And that's something I want to strive to be better at. Be there for Nicole Nicole Joy Mitchell
Yes.
and the girl that had that feeling, be
Yeah.
there for me.
Yes, me too. I think it's a lifelong pursuit. Okay, just a
Yes,
couple more questions because I know I've kept you. Thank you so
that's so
much
fine.
for.
Turn this into a series. This
I
conversation
know. Yeah, maybe we'll do two. Um,
after like for three. Goodness.
Nicole, I want to hear about your Metropolitan Opera debut because from a distance, watching that on Facebook and watching your posts and just the joy that that was, it seemed like such just beautiful, beautiful experience. Will you tell us about it?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you, first of all. Well, I have to say, I almost did an audition. I almost did an audition, and a friend of mine contacted me. She said, "No, you need to audition." And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I don't know if I." And then they were like, "Just go audition." So I did the audition. Leave it there. I sang part of an aria because they had a lot of people to get through, and so I sang part of an aria, and I was like, oh, "Okay, we'll walk out." And went on my merry way. And they told us that we would hear like it's like in March or May or something like that. Well, I got a call in January,
Ooh.
and I almost didn't answer the phone because I was like, "Who's this?" But then I answered the phone, but I didn't say anything, and I heard the person go, "Oh, strange people calling you, like who? Hello?" Like I had this whole other story I was going to tell you about this man that called me. I thought, but I won't go there.
Okay.
I said hello, and they're like, "Hi, is this Nicole Mitchell?" I said, "Yes." This is so and so from the Metropolitan Opera, and I said, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Hi," and we have good news for you. We'd like to, we hope it's good news. We'd like to extend an offer for you to join the ensemble for, Porgy and Bess. And I was so excited. I mean, I said, "Well, oh yes, that would be wonderful. Please don't post about it or anything like that. And I said, "Okay, fine," because they didn't make the official announcement about the opera. But anyway, I shared it with my mother. She was so excited.
Oh,
And fast forward, so our first day of rehearsal was Monday, August 5th. And I will never forget it for many reasons. My mother, and I have to share this, my mother passed away July 23rd. And we, she passed away in New York. And she wanted her funeral to be in Alabama. So I was putting everything together. So she had a service here, and then she wanted to be buried in Montgomery near her mother. And I got it actually right near her mom, my grandmother. And her funeral was Saturday, August 3rd. And in my mind, all this time, like Monday, August 5th, and I was in the busyness of so much, I guess, busyness of planning and shock and keeping it together
oh
and
my
all of
gosh.
that business. And I was like, I don't know if I should even go to this. I don't even know if I should do this. And I heard, as strong as it could be, I heard my mother's voice saying, "Go on, go on." And she would say that to me in life, like, "Go on, like just I want you to go on, go." And I went. So when I said, "Okay, I'm gonna just breathe. I'm gonna make my way to the Met." I had my score, and I was butterflies and of excitement, butterflies and cartwheels, of excitement. When I walked those doors, it was, I remember going back there to see other friends, to, that little area, backstage area, to greet friends or get your tickets from friends or whatever. But I'd never been in. And it's a maze. It's like a city within a city.
Yeah.
And so I got there early because the elevator wasn't working because we had to walk down. I was like, I'm here. I'll get there early because I like to arrive early. And I got there, and it was the feeling of, it was it was magic. It was beyond magic. It was a blessing, and it was this warm glow. There was something, I can only describe it as golden. And then when we begin to sing, after the introductions and the welcoming, and it's also like a mini reunion with people who haven't seen each other in a long time, and also people who didn't know who was where, because there were some people we knew that auditioned who didn't weren't accepted, who I know were fabulous voices, but they weren't a part of this. So you didn't know like who's where, and it was so wonderful. But then when that baton with Maestro Colombo, we were sitting there and we were in our sections, Later we would be mixed up, but we were in our sections, a voice type and parts. And the sound in that room on the C level, the sound, I have never heard a sound so spectacular.
Wow.
And it was so wonderful because Black folks, we tend to be very, and I know a lot of people don't like to generalize, but we respond. We respond. And so there were several people sitting next to my friend Linda. Linda was sitting next to me, and we were like grabbing each other, like when the men, because the men are singing, and we were like, wait a minute. And actually, I would say probably 90 to 95% of the Porgy and Bess cast had done some version of Porgy and Bess, because it's always shortened, because that thing is long. It's long. If you did it from cover to cover, it's very long. It may have Wagner beat, honey, but it's long. Fabulous music, but it's very long. So they cut it in different places. And so many people remark, I'm hearing chords I never heard before. Like, oh, that is. And just the sound, and it was spectacular. And a lot of us, it was our debut, and we were having so much fun. And then I got to see Denise Graves, and I was so shy, and I wanted to say hi to her, but I was like, I'm gonna give her space, because people, can I have a picture with you? Which I love people that do that. I think that's great. But I said, I'm gonna give her space and what have you. And I'm gonna observe. And she was a wonder to watch. And she was just a lovely, lovely person, just very solid, genuine. And it was wonderful watching her, and Angel Blue and Eric Owens. And it was just the talent all around. And the talent, you were standing next to other people who, several of us could have done any of those roles of the principals. And it was just, it was frighteningly fantastic. It was something that, it was special. And when you're part of something so special, like, it just, you can't find the words. It was beyond, it was a gift.
Wow.
And the voices, and there was Miss Leah Hawkins. She's in their program, and she was Strawberry Woman. So if people don't know, Strawberry Woman is this one little moment, but it's a fabulous moment. Oh, it's a fabulous moment for the singer. The music is seductive, and it comes after a lot of tension, but it's very sultry. And the Strawberry Woman comes to sell her strawberries, and it's such a seductive song. And I remember being in rehearsals, and she started to sing that. I wanted to hit somebody, because it was just, I was like, and she's a lovely soul. And I was just like, I'm here with this. I'm here. And it was so wonderful. And there were people, everybody cared, from the production side of it, they cared, all the nuances. I remember, I'll tell you, this is something funny. I knew that I was at a place where they saw me when I went to try on my costume. So when you go try on your costume, they, of course, have a sign for you, a time for you. And I went in, and so they were like, okay, we have this bra for you. We have these undergarments. I said, oh, okay, because it's set in like 1930s South Carolina. And when I saw the underwear, especially the bra, and it was my color. It was my skin color. And I saw, like the ladies who see each other getting dressed, and they had their skin color was matched, as close as possible to their skin. And I said, now that's something.
Wow.
I was very impressed by that. I was like, oh.
Wow.
Really impressed by that. And it was just things like that. And the chorus people, they were very nice, because they have their own chorus, and they was sing most of the operas throughout the season. And they threw a party for us, and which was so lovely. It was wonderful, and it was at the right time in my life, because I was leaving it was so fresh. And there were moments because it was a wonderful distraction, if you will. It was a way for me to pour myself into the music. And I had these little pins made with my mother's face on it, and I got them and I wore it under my costume for every pretty much every performance because I was like having my mother there with me. But it was fabulous. But I have to tell you
Mm.
this: on opening night, it was the most wonderful feeling, and there was this magic moment that happened for me, and I knew it was for me. And so open night, gala night, we're on stage, and there's a scrim and there's the main curtain. So the main curtain peels back, and you see the scrim, and but you see the set, the lighting, and we're on this like what do you call it, lazy Susan, whatever it turns, a turntable, and as it's turning, and we're frozen in position, and as it's turning, the scrim is coming up, and there was this powerful smell of perfume, like very floral, like it just like smacked me in the face, and I'm in a frozen position, and it's my mother because my mother had these fragrances, and it was funny. I
Wow.
asked know that because a lot of singers, of course, don't. There's a rule: you don't have perfume, colognes, anything, because that can set off people's allergies, and it's not good. And but everybody was pretty good. And I said, well, did you smell that? And they were like, no, I didn't smell it. And I and
Oh,
I knew I was like, wait a minute. And it was one of the most wonderful feelings. And
wow.
I was still in my frozen position because there was a moment where we all broke out of our freeze. And when that smell hit me, I said, all right, Ma, I know you're here.
Whoa.
And it was that for me.
Wow.
And every time I got on that stage, even for rehearsals, I was so excited. That picture I shared with you where my dress is all, um,
I
you know,
love it.
that was the first day that we were going to step onto the stage. And
Wow.
my friend Linda Childs, she took my hand. We went on the stage when we were allowed to be on stage. We were the first two because we were like, we're going to step on the stage first because they called to come to the stage. So we got, I mean, we were so excited. It was the most wonderful thing. And she grabbed my hand and she said, Marian Anderson, Jesse Norman. And with each step,
Whoa.
stepping, and it was all of these singers, Simon Estes, George Shirley, all these singers who made a way for us to be there
Mm.
because it was just spectacular. And then of course a week later, because we opened on September 23rd, it was a Monday night. A week later to the day, we had a show on that Monday night. Jesse Norman passed away, and we sang for her.
Mm.
So it was absolutely spectacular. I enjoyed every moment. Even like yes, hours were long. I didn't care. I'm like they're paying me. I'm being paid to and it's not even just the money part of it. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed being there. And I said somebody else would love to be where I am right now.
Mm.
There was so many people who auditioned and didn't make it, but I was chosen to be here at this time.
Mm.
And I said, I'm grateful. I'm grateful all the way. Because there were some people like, well, I'm ready for this to be done. And I just said, well, I just, because everybody's different. And I was just like, I mean, they loved it, but it's hard work, and some people live further than others, and I just was like, I'm enjoying every moment. I'm so grateful. And then when they extended the run, that was fabulous because originally it
Wow.
was only 14 shows, and then they added three more, and so we did 7 shows in 2019, and then the next 7 went out 10 shows started in 2020 in January, and that's when I got the courage to take my picture with Miss. I will ask her for a picture, Miss Grace. I was like, Miss Grace, and may I have a picture? But she was like, yes. Like she was like,
Oh.
and I'm like, one of the great legends, one of the great voices, and also you're meeting people. It was really a wonderful time. I took a juggling class because they did Philip Glass's Akhenaten, and they
Mm.
had these jugglers, spectacular production. So if you're members of the company, and I was like, that's right, I'm a member of the company. You could sign up to take this class, and so I went and took this class, and there were people from accounting. There were you didn't have to be just a performer. You could be a company, And if you had the time, and so much for juggling and dropping stuff, and
That's awesome.
it was real. It was I had a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I made some new wonderful friends, and it was I it was it came at the right time in my life, and it took me some time to receive that because I was, and there's a whole lot I will not get into, but there were so many distractions because I had to, my mom, God bless her, you know, I was trying to help her and deal with other things, and it was weird how everything sort of lined up, and I had to receive it was hard sometimes to receive the blessings of it, but I did. I really did. And you know, I don't, who knows what the future will bring. I don't know, but I'm grateful. It was a wonderful time, and I didn't take any moment for granted. I not one, not a one.
Ah,
For
sounds
asking.
so incredible. I'm so happy that you got to live
Great.
that. So great.
It was so great. And also I have to say, the thing that got me when we were on the stage, I realized, I was like, because I'd been in the opera house many times, you know, from the, of course, an audience. And from the stage, the house looked so small. But and it was amazing. Like, it just seemed so small. Of course, it's big, but from the stage, it just looks like almost like a dollhouse. I mean, a beautiful dollhouse, but it's so beautiful. But
How
it
strange.
feels, it was strange. I was like, oh, okay. But I have to say, when I was on that stage, I said, yeah, you belong here. I
Mm-hmm.
said, yeah, you don't have a
Yeah.
solo. I tell you what, they're showing on PBS. I don't know when it shows up in Europe, but it's going to be the HD performance that happened on February 1st. Is going to be on PBS, I think, July 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think that's here. I don't know when it'll be in Berlin, or when it's released to go on
Mm-hmm.
online, whatever. But I remember some people saw the HD and they were like, Nicole, how did you get all up in the front? And I said, listen, that was just stage because I didn't have any
Yeah.
solo lines. But I might have solo. I was right there,
That's awesome.
right up in there, you know. And I had a great time. I really did. It was a great moment in my life, and you know, I'm grateful, truly grateful. Thank you
That's
for asking about that.
amazing. Yeah. All right. I have one last question. What do you wish you would have known as a younger artist? What would you impart to, well, this might be two questions because, um, yeah, what do you wish you would have known? And then what's some advice that you have for other young artists?
Oh, thank you. Well, one of the things that I wish that I would have known is that you're meeting people. Don't, you know, they are people, not just their titles. Don't be intimidated by these titles. They are people, they have lives,
Such good
they have
advice.
lives
Yeah.
off the stage that has nothing to do with you. And to not be intimidated by their title as being conductor. I mean, give respect, of course, you know, give respect and nothing, you know, great admiration for people who have, of course, invested and survived it, but be careful about idolizing. And not that I didn't feel like I idolized, but you know, it is something to meet people who you've only heard about or heard sing, or and people who you didn't know their careers, but you started to look through and you're like, oh, you know, it is intimidating, but to know they're just people.
Mm.
And one of the things I wish I knew, and it really would have been just uh, settled into me, was do your own thing. Just learn as much as you can. Get Stop thinking about the stage. Don't think about getting on a stage. Think about being in that practice room because that's where it is.
Mm.
You can have a love affair with that practice room and not have a love affair with the image
So good.
on stage. So I guess that's twofold. Could also be what I would tell younger singers, like the magic is in that practice room. And also take care of yourself. Know what you need. Listen to your body,
Mm-hmm.
and know when something is beyond you. Because I had somebody trying to get me to sing something, and I went to they wanted me to sing Clytemnestra. And I was like, I said, I went to my teacher, I went to Miss Betty Allen. I said, Miss Allen, would I ever sing this role? And she goes, say, yes, yes. I said, well, there's this guy who wants me to sing it. And she was behind this big old desk. The only thing missing was a big white cat, fluffy cat. And she raised up and she said, that will kill you. She says, I said to her, I said, Miss Anna, I told him no. I told him no because my instinct was also no. And that's the other thing, instinct. You're not going to know everything. Everything's not going to be presented. And you don't have to know everything. Just receive and yeah, you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
A lot of things come at you. Write down certain things. Even if you don't understand it, keep a log. Write it down. Go back to it. You look at it. Oh, I see what this, was being said. Because there are things that just you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
They sometimes. And be open to not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And also don't be afraid to say, you know what, I don't know. Because you're around people who you never heard of this singer, you never heard of this opera, and that's about them and their ego.
Mm-hmm.
Say, no, tell me more about it. Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing, be open. And yes, it is scary, but also know everybody's scared. Yeah. Everybody.
That's somehow so good.
Everybody is scared. And also everybody has a story that you don't see. Mm-hmm. Things that are tough, things that are, that this is their place of escape. Mm-hmm. And also, this is a great piece of advice. This is for the kids, those going to school, and also at the opera houses. A friend of mine told my big brother, I call him my big brother. He told me, he said, little sis, I'm going to tell you this. When you knew I was coming to Manhattan School of Music, he said, little sis, let me tell you something. I said, okay. And he said, stay out of the cafeteria. And I said, and I was like, what? I was like, food? He said, no. Stay out of the cafeteria. He says, because that's where a lot of stuff starts. People talking, whispering about things and who's going to get this, or what, all the foolishness. Don't be involved in that. Put your blinders on. Hear what you can hear, but don't get caught up in gossip. Mm-hmm. Really don't get caught up in gossip. And which I didn't feel like I was that person anyway, but no. it was the information, because when I was at the school, and one time I was like, I gotta sit in this cafeteria, for a little bit. And I was hearing things, and you see the clicks and people and talking, you hear certain things, and I knew, gotta go. Like that moment in Color Purple.
Gotta go.
When the guy goes with the piano.
Gotta go.
Gotta go. And I was like, where you going to come? Oh, I'm running. I gotta, ask to. Always have some things to do. And also just don't beat yourself up. Everything's not going to go your way. And guess what? That's a blessing. A no is also wonderful direction. Just as much as a yes, yes, you may get a yes. Sometimes that yes is not always a blessing. That no is a blessing. It's still direction. And just to also, I want to say this last thing I'll say, because there's so much to say, but this is my last thing I will say, is let go of the image that you have. Let go of that idea that you have of how things should work itself out, what your path is going to be.
Oh, that's so hard.
That's hard. That is so hard, because you're like, well, I want it to be, because the way I envisioned my career, I was going to win a big old award at the Met. I was going to be running to my teacher, and that wasn't path at all. And you know what? It was the right thing. So let go of it. And then I will add to this. You will see other people. This is where that patience is. You will see other people get what you want. Be happy for them. Yes, if you're going to be jealous, because that's a natural emotion. I would lie if I said I was never jealous. Of course, you see, you're like, I want that too. I want to be special, too. We all want to be special, but be happy for them. If you're jealous, why are you jealous? Oh, they can float notes. Well, that means you got to get in the practice room, float
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going and allow it to be ugly, and that's it. Allow room for ugliness.
Mm.
Allow just don't injure yourself. Don't be foolish. Just don't be, don't be like oh this hurts. That's not good.
Mm.
You know, but allow yourself to feel that emotion and say, okay, I'm going to take that energy and put that with myself, not in a negative way. What can I improve upon? And
Mm.
there's always something, a language. Listen, yes, here there are all these the songs that people sing, that are the hits in the leader world. There, go look at the obscure things. Go listen to things that nobody has done in years. Like go
Mm.
and listen, just
Mm.
listen. But yeah, that's my biggest thing. It's like, let go of that which you thought. And that's just a life thing as well. Like, oh yeah, I thought I was gonna be married by 35 and have 5 children and this and that, and we were gonna be living here, dog, and I was gonna have a farm, and I mean that wasn't my dream for myself. But you know what I mean? People
Yeah.
have ideas, and then you're like, well, I didn't, we're living our stories. And it's like, I didn't write that.
Mm.
But you live it and you make the most of it. But you got to find that space for yourself. Always make space for you and know
Mm.
what you. Oh, and I'm sorry, they'll say this. Know what you need, and don't be afraid to tell people no.
Mm.
As a performer, I know what I need. I'm not a chatter box when I perform. Go over your score. Have your score.
Mm.
Don't get so cocky like I know this in my The simplest things that that's when you mess it up.
Mm.
Have your score. Don't try to show off and
Mm.
like, oh, I got it. No, have your score. Go through
Mm.
your score. And there's some people, and for some people, they love being in a chatterbox and they love talking about a recipe or whatever gossip or somebody who they're dating or who they like or what a TV show. It is your business to take care of yourself, to know
Mm.
what you need. And that means, because I had to learn the hard way, people have no problem being irresponsible with your time, your money, or your talent
Mm.
because
Yeah.
it may not cost them anything, but it may cost you everything or
Yes.
everything or what seems like everything in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that they will have for you is this. Are you watching? So sorry. They'll give you the tilt. The first. They can't give you back the time. They can't give you back the job. They can't give you, oh, I should have gone over that score. I should have. They can't give you any of that. They can just only tilt their head at you and say, I'm so sorry. And you're mad and you try to put it out on them. That's on you.
Mm.
And that's where you'd be most mad because you didn't protect yourself. Don't expect other people to protect you. Know what you need. I don't talk to people. I find a corner. I am that person. I will take a chair. I will turn it to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I will turn it to the wall. I will turn it to the corner. Not because I'm trying to think I'm better than everybody else, but I'm going over my words. I'm going over, staging.
Mm-hmm.
Have all of that. You know, take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to tell somebody else who wants to come and be a busybody, oh, unless they have something really urgent, but if they try to be cute and stuff, learn to say to them, "Oh, thank you," and don't be nasty. Be kind and say, "My friend, I'm really trying to. I need to focus on this part." Even if they're like, "Oh, you got that, girl." No, this is what I need to do, but I thank you. Because the other thing is, and if you're that person who's the busybody and you see somebody, don't go over to them. People have lives. They may have diagnoses. They may have to move and they don't know where they're going to move to. They may have a breakup. They may have their animal is sick, or they got news that they didn't get the scholarship or whatever, and they need their moment. Don't be intrusive. Learn to, so that's what I'll have to say, and I'll leave that there. I need to write a book.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
No, but
Nicole,
that's it.
I just want to honor you for being who you are and for sharing your beautiful soul with the world, your beautiful voice. I know without a doubt that you were born to do this. You were born to sing. You were born to be a voice in this world that brings
Oh, I thank you.
light and
Oh,
healing.
oh,
Yeah.
I, and I feel the same way toward you and about you. Even when I'm not talking to you, I feel that way about you. And, you know, and I'm not ping ponging a compliment. It's like, oh, well, you. No, I, you always were magical. I think I would call you a little pixie. You're just a pixie. I mean, you just floated. I loved it. Yeah, I was like, okay. And it just, you always so lovely and welcoming. And I love what you have done. I love what you are doing. And, you know, I don't know when I'll be in Berlin,
Yeah,
but
you need to come visit.
I want to come to Germany to see them get some work, talk to
Yeah.
somebody. But my German, because that's my favorite language to sing in. I love singing German. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. And some Russian. But anyway, yes, you're just a lovely being, lovely soul, and we're going to make it through this. That's one thing I always try to say to myself and say to my friends and say to strangers, we will make it through.
We will.
And I'm not, I know some people have not made it through, but those of us that are here, we can still move in that energy. We will make it through.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's that. We'll make it.
I didn't even get to ask you about COVID. That was also on my list of questions, and but we sort of talked about it. But
Question. I'll answer it quickly if you want to.
okay,
If not,
I just wanted to ask, how did COVID affect you as an artist? I mean, with all the theaters, I mean, it's so hard as an opera singer right now.
it's very challenging. Well, of course, I was supposed to go to Knoxville, Tennessee to do an opera, do Harriet Tubman opera. That did not happen. And then I had another gig. I think that was in the New York Philharmonic somewhere. I don't know. And that of course things had to stop. There were a lot of things that have stopped. And of course I was hurt. But I will be honest with you. You know, living in New York as you did for many years, New York is a fabulous city. It's a wonderful city. It's my birthplace, Brooklyn. You know, I love it, but it's also a lot. And of course, the numbers show, you know, in the country, where was it really? The epicenter was in New York. And the numbers have gotten better. Now it's, you know, other places. God bless them. I hope they really pull it together. But I'd be honest with you, I needed to stop. I was tired. I was exhausted, and I was tired of going in the subways because New York is a city that has fabulous energy, but I was worn out.
Yeah.
By the people coming through with the loudness and somebody, you know, panhandling this or panhandling that, and nothing against them because they're doing, you know, what they feel that they have to do. And so I have no shame for them, but you're constantly there's a lot of stimuli, and it's overwhelming, and I was so overwhelmed. I needed to stop. So in some ways this was a blessing, but I'm not a fool because I live near a hospital. And one morning sorry one morning I woke up and actually not before, I felt and I heard this sound, this rumbling, and I said, please don't tell me that's what I think it is. And it was a refrigerated truck, a second refrigerated truck. And they set up where you couldn't see where the deceased would come down. So, you know, nobody from the street could see it, and I couldn't see it. But it was sobering. And I knew people who had it, the COVID, and people I know who are in very fragile health. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be getting ready for a funeral, but then you couldn't go to funerals. It was so strange, but I have to say I was grateful for the pause. It's just, you know, of course, did I want my money? Yes. I want my jobs. Yes. I just like, okay, God, I know you're going to get me through this. You know, there's always money. You're going to provide for me. You have never not provided. And it has made me more conscious. Okay, we got to do things business wise, like I have to set up in a better way, like how your setup is. I have to set up, from working at home for what I'm allowed to do.
Mhm.
And, it just, it made me stop, and for me, it allowed me to grieve a little more, for my mom. And of course, that's just I call it the road of firsts. And then there's the road of seconds, the first birthday without that person, the first big holiday it's the road of first, and then coming up on the anniversary. And I need it for myself, and I'm usually comfortable actually being with myself. I can say that I'm hilarious, I think.
Yeah, you are.
I get to, like, I'm like, Nicole, you're ridiculous. And I have stuff. Fire in 2018. Somebody tossed cigarette butts, and most of the work was done, but there was other part of work that was getting done that still needed to complete it, which I was getting done when my mother then passed away. So I had stuff that I needed to do, and going through her things, and but it's been a hard one. But the beautiful thing is to see, for those who see it, we need each other. The world is so big and crazy, but it is so small, or it seems so big. It is so small.
Mm.
You're not that far from one another,
Yeah.
and we need one another. And there are people who are being smart, what I feel is smart, and there are people I feel are being selfish. But faces are being shown. There's a reason. I trust God. I'm like, okay, there's a reason for this. And I know for some people they don't like that. What do you mean there's a reason? I don't know. I can't tell it what it is to you. I can only trust that what is happening needs to happen. There are things that I don't know what this all means. I don't know. I know one thing. I've washed my hands a lot. I've got all my lotion. I mean, I got so many lotions and stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be moisturized. My hands were so coarse. I was like, my gosh,
I know.
I could start sanding the floor. I was like, I gotta moisturize.
Oh, Nicole.
And it made me feel closer to people. Like we're doing this.
Mm.
We're talking. If this wasn't happening, and maybe you would have asked me. Maybe who knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a greater good, even outside all the madness. There's a greater good that's happening.
Yeah.
And that are you coming to grips with those who are willing to do it, because it's not easy. Dealing with hard stuff with yourself, and also praying for other people, because I'm so blessed. I'm blessed. I can say I am blessed. I truly am blessed, and I'm praying for people who are locked up with their abusers, or say locked, because that's everybody's home life is not ideal.
Yeah.
And people who couldn't go to certain places, like my mother, her like I said, she died last year. And of course, I would love my mother to still be here, but I have said several times to God, yes, I want my mother here, but I'm so glad that she is not, because I wouldn't want her to go through this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it. But I have a lot of gratitude, and this new stuff being reborn out of me, or being born out of me, that I didn't have before. So, we're here, and we're going to survive, and the best we can. And yeah, I love you, my friend.
I
We're gonna
love you
make it.
too. We are going to make it. Now, Nicole, so Nicole and I were talking before the show, and she's going to set up a Patreon so she can share her spoken word poems and her singing, her songs. Her voice is incredible. I'm going to play a clip of it after our interview. I'll probably have to do two different, like maybe two different podcasts out of our session. But anyway, if people want to be a part of the Patreon later on, how can they get in touch with you now so that you can let them know when that's going to happen?
Well, they can use and contact me by email. My name, Nicole, all lowercase, Nicole, NicoleJ, as in Joy, Mitchell, Mitchell at yahoo.com. And so I
Yahoo.
welcome, you know, Yahoo. I don't know. Oh my God, old. Birthday.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so they can contact you at Nicole J. Mitchell at yahoo.com,
Yes.
and you'll let them know about all the exciting things that you are continuing to create and bring to the world.
Yes, and I wish anybody who's watching or will watch in the future, blessings to you and your families, your loved ones. I don't know what you're going through, but know that somebody is sending positive energy to you, just sending it to you, because this is not an easy time. So
Mm,
I, I send compassion to you. I send it for myself, and I send it out to you, because that's what we need, more compassion. And I
yeah,
know, but I do believe that. So
yeah.
anyway.
Nicole,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here and for being here. Thank you.
Love you.
I love you too. Bye bye, my dear.
Bye.